What's up, guys? Week 7's in the books, and Sam Howell's headed for the books because he's definitely going to break that all-time sack record. He's currently on pace for about 100 sacks still, halfway through the season. That's nuts. So why did he take 6 more, maybe 7 more against the Giants? We could pontificate, we could bloviate, we could make shit up. But instead, let's just watch the film. Let's go. 2. All right, first drop back is going to be the first sack. It's going to be a 5-step drop, and there will be guys open, right? Watch 87, the tight end, on this drag, and also watch Jahan Dotson on this little flat at the top of the screen. They're open, but the way that plays work is Howell doesn't just throw to the first guy who comes open. He throws to the first guy in his progression that comes open within the structure of the play. This is going to be a 5-step drop. On a 5-step drop, the quarterback is going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, step up, bounce a little bit, and then see what's available to him. On a 3-step drop, the ball needs to be out by now, right? On a 3-step drop, you throw the ball as soon as your back foot hits. On a 5-step drop, almost always, you stand up and watch the play progress a little bit. Not a little bit, like for literally one bounce. By the time Howell finishes his bounce, he's being hit. So there's no opportunity to really get this ball out. Now, you might say he needs to anticipate that pressure, and that's all well and good. But I want you to watch what's going on with the line here. 97, the nose guard, is going to end up getting the sack, and it is a 5-man front. They're going to drop Thibodeau into coverage, and 97 is going to loop. So the left guard forgot to block somebody, I guess. And the center, who's supposed to be double-teaming the nose guard with the left guard, gets absolutely washed out. Finally, the running back, who's supposed to be helping, goes for the blitzer. So the left guard is messed up twice. The running back now has to cover up for his mistake. The center is left alone, and the center is terrible. Left alone on the nose guard. And Sam Howell is getting interior pressure that he thought he had extra help on right away. Nothing he can really do. Again, sure, he could have aborted the play and thrown the ball out quick, and I would have been impressed with that. But I can't blame a guy for getting sacked before he sets up at the top of his drop. I just can't. That's not how the quarterback position is played. Now, this one, he gets a little bit more time. 1, 2, 3. Ball needs to be out, but who's open? So at this point, you realize either you need to have gunned it to your tight end with a ton of anticipation, really tough throw to make to the middle of the field with a linebacker lurking, or I guess that's a robber safety. Or you have to realize nothing's coming open, realize you're going to have pressure, and dump it off to the running back. Now, right here, I would have preferred if Sam Howell saw this rusher right here in the middle of the screen and ball out to his running back. However, we're not so lucky. Howell just brings the ball down, doesn't want to get hit while throwing and lead to a fumble or a turnover. I get it. This pressure is almost immediate. Again, 1, 2, 3, already hit. It's not like he's holding onto the ball. It's not like this is a quick developing play that he's not understanding. I mean, hell, he's got dudes open everywhere. It's just he can't get any protection. And you see 2 offensive linemen running back to pick him up because they both got beaten by one guy. That's not good. Here the Giants obviously are bringing another blitz. It's a 6-man blitz. What do you want Sam Howell to do? What do you want him to do? There's the top of his drop. He's already about to be hit. Now, he could get the ball to McLaurin, but you can't throw over the middle of the field while you're being hit. That's how you throw picks. So, what's he supposed to do? That's a no-fault sack. Sam Howell's taken plenty of sacks that are totally his fault this year, just not these 3. Here's one where you can make an argument. This totally depends on the coverage. He has enough time. He bounces at the top of his drop. Who's open? You could slip it out to the running back. I don't know how he's going to slip it over Dexter Lawrence's outstretched arms when Dexter Lawrence is an inch from his face. See right here, defensive tackle is going to slap anything he tries to throw the running back away. Right? Even if Howell is 6'6", he can't throw over the defensive tackle like that. Additionally, nobody's open downfield. Here's top of the drop. You tell me who's open. Here's after the play, when everything looks really obvious. Do you think that curl at the top of the screen's open? There's two dudes ready to pounce on it, and the ball's got to travel 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40 yards. That's a no-fault sack. It's a coverage sack, but it's still a no-fault sack. Here, I think this is the intentional grounding. Now, for my purposes, intentional grounding is a sack, right? It gets treated the same way. It's listed as a different thing, but why should I treat it any differently? Here's the top of the drop. Everybody's blanketed. He doesn't even have a running back to check it down to. Top of the drop, everybody's blanketed. Tell me what he's supposed to do. Aside from like teleport, jump over everybody, what is Sam Howell supposed to do here? That wasn't the intentional grounding, it must be next, but I just want to know what people expect a good NFL quarterback to do in that scenario, or in any of these scenarios. Here, again, one where Howell has a little bit of time, and he bails on a clean pocket. Now again, who's open? I think the bottom of the screen is the play. I believe that the receiver at the bottom of the screen is running a streak, a little bit bent inside, and I believe that he will be open. Yeah, he's open. But here's where he starts to break. In fact, you know what? If they're even, they're leaving, right? Right here, throw the ball to him. Now that you know that the safety is coming down. Right here. But if you do, you might get hit. Now, I think that we can blame Howell for this sack safely because it's on the opposite side of the progression. It's a three-man route. Two of the men are totally covered. And it's a little bit of a confusing coverage because it's clearly a robber, right? So you see two high safeties like this, you would expect these guys are both going to be covering half field, cover two. Instead, it's actually single high safety, robber coverage, man. If it was cover two, remember, if it was like this, you can't throw to this receiver because he's going to run directly into double coverage. But since it's a robber, this is actually the perfect thing to do. A little confusing, takes a little time to recognize, especially for a first-year starter. That being said, right here, Howell needs to recognize, oh, one of the safeties is crashing down. That means I have the deep shot. And right here, he needs to be letting go of the ball on a deep shot down the right hash. Whatever they call the numbers. The numbers, just throw it down the numbers, not on the boundary because that's too far outside. But you had the play. And you would have gotten hit and it would have hurt, but you had the play. So that's the first sack we're going to actually blame Sam Howell for. Sack 6, I want to say. Here, this is the throwaway. This is the intentional grounding. They're trying to set something up. I think it's like a screen back to the right where they fake a run to the left. Clearly, look at Howell's footwork. He's supposed to be rolling back to the left on like a throwback to the right-hand side. So I'll just draw it. Forget all this explaining. Howell's supposed to kind of roll back here while this running back leaks over here, Brian Robinson. And then you throw it to him once everybody crashes down on you this way. Instead, it gets blown up. The left tackle and tight end botch the protection. Howell has to run for his life. The only play out there is that throwback to the running back. But it's covered, so you can't throw it at his feet, really. You got to get it past the line of scrimmage. And Howell just doesn't quite get out of the pocket. We're going to blame him. Got to have better awareness than that. Howell's got to know better than that. Because if you're inside the pocket, you just have to throw it a receiver. And if you're outside the pocket, you just got to get it past the line of scrimmage. Either way, there's never a really great excuse for intentional grounding unless you are in the process of being sacked. And Howell had a moment. He could have made something happen. It's being a little bit harsh, but I don't want to be accused of bias. 5 sacks, 1 intentional grounding. 2 of those plays, Sam Howell's fault. Could have done better. 4 of those plays, not reasonable to ask for much more. Let's add context to that, though. On 35 dropbacks in this game, Sam Howell manipulated the pocket to extend a play in a positive manner 25 times. Now, that includes rolling out of the pocket. That includes throwing through contact. That includes stepping up through pinching pressure. whether you avoid pressure like Tom Brady does or Lamar Jackson does, manipulating the pocket positively to avoid pressure and extend a play is always important. And Sam Howell does it on the highest percentage of his plays I think I've ever seen. On the season, Sam Howell is having to manipulate the pocket 46.2% of his dropbacks. That's almost half. League average is 27.6. That's ridiculous. Now, that doesn't mean he's getting pressured on half of his snaps. Sometimes you manipulate the pocket 2-3 times on one play, but it means he's doing the most running around in the pocket and thinking in the pocket of any quarterback before the throw. Right? Because even if you're just sliding like Tom Brady and you're not actually tiring yourself out by running around, you're thinking about other things that aren't throwing the ball to the open receiver, that aren't locating the open receiver in the first place. And that's really difficult, especially on a first-year starter. It's playing the game on super expert mode, whereas a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of offensive coordinators create an environment where they can play on easy mode, and that's much easier. All this being said, I've got 33 charted sacks for Sam Howell this year, and part of that is because a lot of sacks I chart as negative runs. Add those in, you've got 13 negative sacks, 9 negative runs, and then 20 sacks that I don't fault Howell for whatsoever. Howell's taking a negative sack on 4.5% of his dropbacks. League average is 3.5%. Now, it sounds like a pretty decent disparity. It's an entire percentage point, but because we're only halfway through the year, that's 3 sacks. If Sam Howell had taken 3 less sacks, he'd be exactly league average in terms of how often he takes negative sacks. 3 plays. It's not a lot. Some might argue it's negligible or irrelevant. Additionally, Sam Howell's getting sacked on plays that are just not his fault 6.8% of the time, compared to the league average of 2.6. So he's one of the very few quarterbacks who most of the time is not to blame for their sacks. Most of the time, 60% of the time, if there's a sack, the quarterback is at fault. Sam Howell's flipped. 60% of the time, if Sam Howell's getting sacked, it's not his fault. That's ridiculous. Now, you can add in the negative runs because Sam Howell has negative runs more often than most starting quarterbacks as well. He's got 9 of them on this season, which is 3.1% of his dropbacks. The league average is 2.4. So Sam Howell, again, another entire play. I know. One more play. So 4 or 5 plays on a season so far that he has cost you. I think he's more than made up for it with his arm, especially when he's given protection. And I think that there's a solution here. Because when you realize that Sam Howell is not the reason for these sacks, when you realize he's not the cause, you can better address the actual problem. The symptom is obvious, the sacks. The disease is evidently not Sam Howell, it's the offensive line. And again, we just saw it's pretty clear. So what do? 1, you get the ball out quick, play quick game. Now, that's not Sam Howell's strength, and it's not really what this wide receiving core is built for, but it's a viable option. 2, do what the Browns used to do when Baker Mayfield had no offensive line under Freddie Kitchens and Hugh Jackson. Keep a 6th offensive lineman in. Keep a 3rd offensive tackle on the field. Run 4 routes instead of 5. Yeah, you have fewer options, but you can actually set up in the pocket and figure out which ones are open. And when you've got incredible receivers like Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, and even Logan Thomas, I would rather have fewer options, but more opportunity to find them and more opportunity to actually hit them. Additionally, if you don't want to leave a 6th man on the offensive line, or even if you do, you can max protect. So instead of 5 receivers running out, maybe keep a 6th offensive lineman and a running back and a tight end and keep 3 blockers with 2 routes going out. Now, I don't love that. I would always want to at least have 3 routes, but maybe you do a delayed route. Your running back, blocks or chips and then sneaks out into a flat. There are a lot of creative ways to build time in for your quarterback when you know your offensive line's the problem. And if you're just going to look at sacks and say, well, typically it's a quarterback's fault if he gets sacked. And that's true. It's most of the time, if a quarterback gets sacked, they did something wrong. But if you're just going to blanket statement that without actually looking into the facts, Eric Eager, then you're going to come to the wrong conclusions. You're going to change your quarterback rather than realizing Tom Brady himself would really struggle with this offensive line. It's a really bad offensive line. They can't block up anything. If I have some time, and I certainly will have some time, I'll grade the rest of Sam Howell's game, actually passing the ball. I thought he was mediocre at best in this game. And I think that that's heavily reliant upon an incredible second half. But in the second half, when Sam Howell got an A+ performance grade, in my opinion, it just so happens that that's when the Commanders started leaving a sixth offensive lineman in, when they started leaving 2 or 3 extra blockers in, running 2 and 3 men routes. Because Terry McLaurin's going to get open, especially if you give him some time. And Sam Howell's a really, really good thrower of the football, one of the very best in the NFL, when he can set his feet and throw without being hit. So there's a path to success for the Commanders, and I think they might have even stumbled across it. But to blame Sam Howell for something that is vast majority out of his control, that's just ignorant. And here we have film, so we don't need to be ignorant. All right. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching the film with me. And until like tomorrow or maybe the next day, I'll be grinding film. Hasta.